There is something happening right now that did not begin when you pressed play. And it did not begin this morning when you opened your eyes. And it did not begin last year when you finally decided to stop pretending that everything was fine. What is happening right now has roots that go further back than your memory can reach. Further back than the earliest story anyone in your family ever told about you. Further back than the first breath that ever filled your lungs and announced to the universe that you had arrived. Something ancient set its eyes on you before you were anything the world could point to, and it has never once looked away. That is not a sentiment. That is not a beautiful phrase designed to make you feel temporarily better before you return to the weight of your ordinary life. That is a declaration about the architecture of your existence, and I need you to sit with it for a moment, not with the part of your mind that immediately starts calculating probabilities and measuring it against past disappointments, but with the part of you that went very still just now because somewhere beneath all the noise and all the grief, and all the years of quietly wondering whether any of this means anything, you recognize the truth of what I just said. Type 555 right now if you felt something shift in you the moment I said that, because that shift is not an accident, and I need you to mark this moment. There are people who stumble onto messages like this one and scroll right past them. And there are people who stop. And the difference between those two kinds of people is not luck, and it is not coincidence, and it is not the algorithm. Although the algorithm is a remarkable and mysterious thing, the difference is that some people are in a season where they have been softened enough by life to finally hear what has been trying to reach them for years. And if you are watching this right now, if something pulled you here when you could have been anywhere else on this enormous and overwhelming internet, then you belong to the second group, and I want you to understand what that means. It means the summons went out for you specifically, and you answered it. It means the part of you that is still alive underneath all the scar tissue recognized the call and moved toward it even when your rational mind was busy telling you that you were just scrolling, that this was just another video, that you were just killing time. You were not killing time. You were being guided, and the guiding hand is older and more patient and more precise than anything you have ever encountered in your human life. And it has been moving pieces into position around your life for longer than you can imagine. Imagine for a moment a master chess player who can see 40 moves ahead, and imagine that every move you experienced as a setback, every moment the door slammed in your face, every relationship that ended with wreckage, every job that evaporated, every plan that collapsed right at the moment it seemed most solid, every prayer you sent up in the dark that seemed to bounce off the ceiling and fall back to earth unanswered. Imagine that every single one of those moments was a calculated move by that player, not against you, but for you, positioning you, protecting you, maneuvering around an opponent who wanted to intercept your destiny before you could reach it. Because there is an opponent, I am not going to pretend otherwise. There is a force in this world that has been trying to stop you, and the evidence of its interference is written all over your biography. And you have always known this even if you did not have the language for it. Because there is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes not from working hard, but from fighting against something invisible, from pushing through resistance that seems disproportionate to your situation, from watching doors close at precisely the wrong moment, from experiencing setbacks that arrive with a precision that almost seems intentional. And that is because it is intentional. The resistance in your life has not been random. Drop an amen in the comments if you have felt that resistance, and you know exactly what I am talking about. Because I want you to understand something crucial about that resistance that will completely transform the way you interpret your own story. The enemy does not waste resources on people who do not matter to the mission. That is the truth that should stop you in your tracks right now. The intensity of the opposition you have faced is not evidence of your insignificance. It is evidence of your significance. A force that is trying to diminish the world does not pour concentrated effort into disrupting someone who poses no threat to its agenda. It reserves its most persistent, most elaborate, most creative interference for the ones who carry something inside them that could genuinely shift the direction of things. The ones who have been anointed with a purpose large enough to make darkness nervous. The ones whose awakening would cause chains to break in places far beyond their own lives. That is who gets targeted. That is who gets worn down through years of accumulated disappointment. That is who gets surrounded by people who, whether they knew it or not, were instruments of distraction and diminishment. And that is who is watching this right now. Because you do not end up in a message like this one by accident. And you did not survive everything you have survived by accident. And the fact that your heart is still open after everything that tried to close it is not a small thing. It is one of the most extraordinary things I have ever witnessed in a human being, and I need you to hear that clearly. You kept your heart open. You chose, again and again, in the dark, in the silence, in the moments when closing it would have been so much easier and so much more understandable. You chose to keep it open. That is not weakness. That is not naivety. That is one of the most ferocious forms of courage that exists, and it has been seen every single time, and it has not gone unaccounted for. Think about what a seed does when you bury it in dark soil in the middle of winter. It does not experience the warmth of the sun. It cannot feel the seasons shifting above it. It has no evidence from where it sits that anything is happening, that anything will ever happen, that the darkness surrounding it will ever give way to something else. And yet something in the seed does not interpret the darkness as abandonment. Something in the seed knows, at a cellular level, that this burial is not a burial, that what looks from the outside like death is actually the most intensive phase of preparation, that the very pressure and darkness and apparent stillness is doing something profound and irreversible to its interior. And when the moment comes, it does not emerge as a slightly better version of a seed. It emerges as something completely different, something that could not have existed without the burial, something whose capacity to grow and give and reach and shelter is directly proportional to the depth of the darkness it was planted in. That is what has been happening to you. Not in a metaphorical sense that I am using to make you feel better about pain you would rather not have experienced. In a literal, structural, cellular sense, every season of waiting that you experienced as abandonment was a season of root formation. Every silence you interpreted as heaven's indifference was the sound of something being built in dimensions you could not see. Every moment you chose faith when doubt would have been so much more reasonable given the available evidence was a moment that added something to your interior architecture that cannot be taken from you, and cannot be imitated, and cannot be manufactured by any shortcut. You are not the same person who entered those dark seasons. You are deeper. You are stronger. You are carrying a capacity now that you did not have before, and that capacity is precisely what is required for what is coming, and what is coming is not a small thing. Type 222 right now if you can feel in your spirit that something is about to shift, because the shift is already in motion and has been for longer than you realize. And your sensing of it is not wishful thinking but spiritual perception. And I want you to honor that perception rather than immediately talking yourself out of it the way you have talked yourself out of hope before. Because I know you have talked yourself out of hope before. I know about the version of you that learned, through painful repetition, that getting excited leads to getting hurt. That allowing yourself to believe in something good that is coming is just another way of setting up the conditions for a disappointment more devastating than the ones you would experience if you simply expected nothing. I know about the protective layer of measured expectation that you built, brick by brick. After each time the door seemed to open and then closed again. I know that there is a part of you that has not fully believed in good news for years, that hears a promise and immediately starts building in mental escape hatches. That does not allow itself to fully arrive in a moment of hope, because the fall from hope has proven so much harder than the fall from neutral. I see that. I honor the survival intelligence that constructed that protection. And I am telling you directly, and without any hesitation, that this season requires you to dismantle it. Not recklessly, not naively, but deliberately and faithfully. Because a closed posture cannot receive what an open hand can. And what is being released into your life right now requires the kind of open-handed, wide-eyed, fully arrived expectation that you have not allowed yourself in a very long time. The provision that has been sealed, the resources that seemed perpetually just out of reach no matter how hard you worked or how faithfully you gave or how strategically you positioned yourself. That seal is cracking open right now, and the crack is not metaphorical. Something has been released in the spiritual realm that is working its way into the visible one, and it will arrive through channels you did not think to look down, through people you have not yet met, through opportunities that will not look like the opportunities you have been watching for. The way you have been imagining your breakthrough coming is probably not exactly how it is going to come, because the one who is releasing it has a creativity and an economy that operates outside the categories your mind has established. And the surprise of it will be one of the ways you recognize the handwriting on it. And write Amen right now if you are ready to stop anticipating shortage and start genuinely expecting overflow. Because that shift in expectation is not just an emotional preference. It is a spiritual posture, and the posture you hold determines what you are able to receive. Think about what it means to hold your hands open versus to hold them closed. The same abundance can be present in the room. The same provision can be moving toward you. But if your hands are clenched in the grip of an old fear, in the fist of an old disappointment, you cannot receive what is being placed in front of you. Open your hands, not as a performance, not as an affirmation you repeat until you feel it, as a genuine act of surrender to the idea that the one who made you knows what you need. has never forgotten what you need, has been working in ways you could not perceive to bring to you exactly what you need, and that your cooperation with that process begins in the opening of your hands and the softening of your expectations to include the possibility of abundance rather than only bracing against the certainty of lack. This is not prosperity theology. I am not promising you that faith is a transaction where you deposit belief and withdraw material reward. I am telling you about a season, a specific and identifiable season in your specific and individual life, where a ceiling that has been holding things back is being removed, and your awareness of and participation in that removal matters. Your faith is not earning the provision. Your faith is positioning you to recognize it when it arrives and to steward it well when it does. And now, I want to talk about something that has hurt you perhaps more quietly and more persistently than anything else, and that is the loneliness. Not the loneliness of being physically alone, though you may have experienced that too. The loneliness of being surrounded by people and still feeling fundamentally unseen. The loneliness of carrying something inside you that no one around you seemed equipped to recognize or reflect back to you. The loneliness of understanding yourself at a depth that the relationships available to you could not meet. The loneliness of performing belonging in spaces where you never quite belonged, smiling at the right moments, contributing what was expected of you, while something essential in you went hungry in ways you did not even have words for. That loneliness was not a personal failing. It was not evidence that you are too much or too difficult or fundamentally unlovable, or somehow constituted in a way that makes real connection impossible for you. The clearing that happened around your life, the relationships that ended, the ones that faded, the ones that revealed themselves to be fundamentally incompatible with who you were becoming, that clearing was not punishment. It was preparation. You cannot fill a room that is already full. You cannot introduce something new into a space that is packed with things that no longer serve it. The emptying was necessary because what is being brought to you now cannot share space with what was there before. Not because what was there before was entirely without value, but because the level of relationship that is being released into your life now requires a context in which it can breathe and grow and operate at its full depth. Type 555 again if the loneliness has been one of the hardest parts, because I want you to know that what is coming to fill it is not a consolation prize. It is the real thing. It is the kind of connection that people who have never experienced deep loneliness do not even know to long for. The kind that recognizes you at a level below biography, that sees what you carry and does not flinch from it, but instead calls it forward and holds you accountable to the fullness of it. The people who are being sent into your life right now have been in preparation too. They have been in their own valleys, their own seasons of refining, their own periods of loss and rebuilding. They are not going to arrive as finished products who have figured everything out and will now bestow their wisdom on you from a position of completed growth. They are going to arrive as fellow travelers who are awake in the same way you are awake, who are carrying purposes that resonate with yours, who will recognize you not because you present yourself perfectly, but because your spirit introduces itself before your words do. You will know them by the way time moves differently in their presence, By the way, honesty comes easier than